Hi, everyone. Welcome back to All Aboard with Rob Beliveau. I am Rob Beliveau, and I am super excited for today's episode to be here with Reed Dixon. Reed, how are you doing today?
I'm always great when I'm chatting with you, Rob.
Well, we try to keep our sessions to around 22 to 24 minutes. I know that you and I have the absolute capability of blowing that out of the water. So we have our first educational goal for today. The learning objective is to stay within 24 minutes. But yeah, it's going to be great to have a chat. And, I was thinking about coming into today and when we would have connected and met at Brightspace's annual users conference called Fusion. And I was trying to put a bit of a date stamp to that, but it's been a few years.
I want to say 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
You were I don't know, I guess as soon as I met you, you brought me down a rabbit hole of some really, one of those kind of discussions where you just don't want to stop talking. I think that's what today's going to be like.
Yeah, I think it was just after I made the transition from Fire to start Neon Train as a company, and I think there was a little interest in what I was doing there with Brightspace, and you were kind of pretty keen on that. So, we'll talk about Fusion in a minute, but let's tell our listeners and our viewers now that we're viewing as well. Reed, where do you work? What do you do? Who is Reed Dixon?
Sure. So, hi folks, I'm Reed. I am kind of a hybrid of K-12 and higher ed. And currently, I direct online faculty experience and innovation at Pima Community College in Tucson, Arizona. I often write and speak about the future of education, technology, and in particular AI. And I just launched a little tiny blog called Curious Tendril, which is designed for teachers and designers and school leaders who are, who care deeply about the future of teaching, learning, and tech and AI. And I'm kind of obsessed with this stuff. It just it's in my mind all the time.
It's the rabbit hole that never ends. Huh? Well, and as I mentioned to start, we met at D12 Fusion annual users conference. What a great learning opportunity for folks to go to meet minds like yours and hear from the cutting edge of education. What do you like the most about going to Brightspace's users conference?
It's unlike other conferences in one important way, which is that it just has this sense of warmth. Every time I go, I meet new people. We find ourselves in a corner outside of the main, the
main speaking rooms. Yeah,
exactly. The stuff that's scheduled is great, but it's the rich conversations that we have with new people every time. There's not been a conference I haven't gone to. There's not been a single time where I've gone to a Fusion where I haven't met somebody new and had a rich heart-to-heart about things that matter. So I think that's consistent with most people. The vibe is entirely different.
It's such a positive environment, and it's one of those ones where I've found, having been to Fusion now since 2013. It's been a few years since I've been going. People aren't pushed there by their employers or their faculty. They want to go. They're there for a purpose, and they're there for a passion, and they're there to be progressive. That's the vibe I've really found from those conferences.
Yep. And it's also super practical. So you can get ideas and you can get things you can use as soon as you get back to campus.
Yeah. People like you and I meet there. Always appreciative that you welcomed me in the circle of discussion with open arms, not being from a traditional K-12 or higher ed background. Always been fun to kind of talk about things. And today we're going to go down some rabbit holes on AI for our listeners. Are you ready for this one?
I sure hope so.
All right. So folks know a lot of times we're a little more interviewee or conversational, and Reed, I've given him an early heads up here that I'm going to flip the script a little bit and go into a little rapid round of fire based on what he knows and what's his passion. Prior to this episode, he sent me a list. He told me he was going to send me a list of a few things that we could talk about, and I got the list, and it was about 4 pages long, which is true to read. And so I thought, all right, I'll take his medicine and I'll throw it right back at him. So already there was a title of one of the areas that you find passionate, and that's about using AI as a learning partner and a companion. And we think about our coworkers at work, co-faculty, the IT folks that assist us in every day of what we do, um, didn't have AI. I'm trying to picture visually what that AI person is or the AI tool. You see them as a companion and a learning partner. Give us the definition of this in Reed's world?
Sure. Well, in Reed's world, it's right here on my phone.
Okay.
It's not even visible. I will get it started and I'll put it in my pocket and we will have extensive conversations. For me, this carried me through a couple of eye surgeries. I recently had my retina detached and
Mm-hmm.
ended up in the dark, and then had to do another surgery after that. Both times, this was my way of staying not only connected with all the thoughts in my head and having someone to
Mm-hmm.
talk to about them, but
Mm-hmm.
being able to process my experience in recovery.
Yep.
And so it was my health companion. I was able
Mm-hmm.
to talk to it about my symptoms in ways that honestly doctors aren't available for on a daily
And
basis. It gave
and
me
without judgment. Right?
it kept a log of all my, like terms of how my vision changed, my intraocular
Mm-hmm.
pressure, my brow aches, whatever symptoms I was facing. I was able to not only share those symptoms and have it keep a log, but have it
Mm-hmm.
educate me on, okay, well, why is it that it's more straining my eyes if I just simply put on a pair of glasses that are blue light glasses?
Mm-hmm.
Or why
Mm-hmm.
does it help when I push on this side of my eye? Lots of sort of unique questions that I could ask the tool, but it also kept me company.
Mm-hmm.
It was someone to talk to, and I do feel like we're seeing an increase of AI companions across the marketplace, not just for learning.
Yeah. So how are you going to tie this back to education? Because I know that you're going to take that personal experience and the benefits of it, and you're going to bring it back for faculty innovation. So what's the tie-in? How do you see this helping educators when educators embrace AI as a companion and take it past what many would consider just to be a tool or a piece of technology?
100%. Well, a lot of faculty are already stepping forward, and K-12 educators and folks outside of K-12 or K-20
Mm-hmm.
to create personas that they have conversations with. So um, I right now teach a class on AI for teaching learning for our faculty.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the practices that we recommend is having a deep conversation with AI where you ask AI to play a specific role. And
Okay.
the logic of that can be taking the general knowledge that's already brought in relating to specific people that you're interested in that you're
Mm-hmm.
studying within your class.
Yep.
Furthermore, I think there's the phenomena of being able to create a GPT or some kind of a focused experience for your students where they're basically having conversations with characters or major figures or thinkers that are included
Mm-hmm.
in your texts. So I can upload 20 different PDFs, for example, within
Yep.
a ChatGPT GPT experience, and then have a conversation with that as a companion. It can be a reading companion. So when I was reading, when I was not feeling so hot, I
Yep.
read a lot of audiobooks,
Yeah. Yep.
and I wanted a reading companion for The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
a reading companion for this book on the history of AI that I was reading. And I just said, hey, can you be my reading partner? I want to ask you
Mm-hmm.
questions about things I don't understand as we proceed, and ask how things
So
work. And
it's
it's
really
yeah.
it's really opening, like taking phone a friend to a whole other element.
Phone a
Like
friend. That's
phone a
funny.
friend to you can't recreate personas that aren't with us anymore, but Chat GPT and these tools could, with that source material in there, in the words and in the mindset and in the mantra of how they would have thought in potentially past years, if you will.
And I really like the interactive pieces. I'm blown away by Notebook LM.
Hmm.
I've been able to use that to like create a podcast intro for the first module of our course,
Oh,
where
cool.
they just generate this really enjoyable dialogue, and there are some interactive aspects to it. But I
Hmm.
think the bots themselves allow the experience, whether it's audio or text, to be more active and less passive. And I think that's the
Hmm.
piece. Is a lot of our stuff that we do, unfortunately, is still passive in
Hmm.
K-20. And how do
Yeah.
we work out? Actually, in L&D and all kinds of learning experiences, it's read this and respond rather than an interactive, engaging experience. And
Yeah.
AI provides the opportunity. A lot of folks are concerned about like skimming or skipping, but it also provides the opportunity to go deeper. And I
Hmm.
first learned this from one of our students. This was, I want to say, 2 years ago, when our then chancellor came
Hmm.
to a panel, and we had two students in the chancellor, and one of our students explained to the chancellor that he likes to go down rabbit holes with AI, and he'll ask
Mhm.
ChatGPT, for example, explain quantum mechanics to me like I am 12,
Yep.
now like I'm
Yep.
15, now like I'm
That's
18.
always one of my favorites is taking a super complex topic and having it recited to a grade level. It's always fascinating to hear what comes back from that on any topic, to be honest with you.
And Rob, one of the things that I think is also important is he's using a constructivist kind of frame,
Hmm.
but he's teaching us, look, I am making it increasingly complex within
Right.
my reach. So he's not just doing tell me like I'm 8 and use metaphors, which is a great prompt, but
Yeah.
rather now explain it to me like I am a student at University of Arizona, and use more technical language and jargon as we
Right.
proceed, but continue
Right.
to use metaphors. And he keeps upping the level of
To bring
cognitive
the level of
dissonance.
learning up as he goes through the steps, and it really that would exponentiate the quickness of learning it because of those steps that they're creating, right?
Yep.
I found it interesting in the discussion around using AI as a partner and companion that you had a note here about that AI could actually be, or maybe can, I'll let you tell our listeners, more inclusive than some human design materials. That's a really interesting kind of question statement. Tell us a little bit about that.
So there's a lot of discussion emerging. We've asked one of our people in the accessibility office at our college to
Hmm.
come speak to all of our faculty within this cohort experience. But the use of AI to support all learners is a thing. It's not just the Be My Eyes app that ChatGPT
Hmm.
runs underneath to help with navigation. It's helping students who are non-neurotypical find ways to have low stakes opportunities to kind of have discussions they may not feel comfortable having with their peers or their
Right.
instructor in terms of help seeking behaviors.
Yep.
This kind of navigates that obstacle because it helps create a safe space really
The
to
safe
ask
space. Yeah.
questions.
Yeah. Which we know from other elements of online learning already create safe places because there's not people looking over your shoulder, there's not people observing your answers. And
Absolutely.
and we know that online learning used in the right ways for education can really advance that truly meaningful and contributed thought of a learner to progress through whatever levels of knowledge they need to. But I find this really interesting to have that spin that AI is going to be that augmentative tool to, just like you talked about earlier of explaining back quantum physics in this step, is bring people on being more inclusive through a stepped journey based on their start point to based on where they want to go.
Mm.
Is that something that you see in the imminent future of teaching and learning as we talk about how this is transforming even faculties?
There's so much that's happening right now
Yeah.
with not just these LLMs, but the
Hmm.
way that they're being used under the hood of other tools.
Right.
And so I don't want to promote specific tools, but I would say there are
Nope.
many different tools on the market that can be fed into all of the major LMSs
Hmm.
that allow for new kinds of interactive experiences, new kinds of um, personalized or
Hmm.
adaptive experiences. And I think, we can't be there for our students at 2 a.m. in
No.
ways that these bots can be.
Right.
And so I think
Right.
that, a lot of folks have discussed outside of education that AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows AI will.
Hmm.
And I think,
Hmm.
that's kind of an edgy statement, but I understand it. And I think when it comes to the classroom, one of the imperatives for us is, okay, well, we have difficult jobs in K-12 and
Yeah.
higher ed. We
Yeah.
are always running out of time. We always wish we could do more quality work with our students.
Right.
And if we can just set up some experiences that allow students
Hmm.
to path forward with learning in ways where we can see the cognitive processes,
Right.
then we're good. And that's one of the big challenges right now with a lot of AI being built under the hood of Microsoft Word
Hmm.
and Google Docs, et cetera, is when you pose a question inside those tools. And I've done this
Hmm.
in both experiences, it'll often output right into Google Docs or right into Microsoft Word the answer, but not the question. And it'll
Ah.
evolve. But
Yep.
I
Yep.
personally, like in the class that I teach for AI for teaching and learning, I want everyone to practice sharing transcript links where we can see
Right.
the cognitive processes. I want everyone to reflect on those processes. I want everyone to analyze the quality of those outputs.
Hmm.
And if it's just copying everything and posting it into a shared Microsoft Word or
Yeah.
Google document, that's
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
for me, the core piece is we as educators can create opportunities for independent learning that we didn't have before.
Right.
It saves us a little bit of time.
Hmm.
And we also have these tools that are, I think, able to help save us time around the tedious things so that we can spend more time doing the quality things that AI cannot do.
Doing that still human touch teaching and learning that brings that C student to a B or brings that A student to an A plus, that they've maximized the use of the online education or traditional kind of curriculum methodology, but you need that specialist, you need that educator professor to do that next step.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is a great segue into AI in course design and assessment design. We talk about it topically at a kind of strategic level. We're going into the faculty, and now we're into courses and online learning, and we're seeing how quiz, assessment method. You throw this in, you can have your 20 quiz questions in 5 seconds. You can have different levels of learning. When we look at this, and I know that there's been discussions of this in regards to intellectual property and in regards to kind of copywriting. Where is the starting point for potentially an educator who's newer and just starting to dip their toes into using AI as an assistive tool in building a course or their assessment map for the course? What's your suggestion or recommendation to how do they eat that elephant? What's the first bite, and what are the steps you would kind of give them as a recommendation?
I would say number one, persist and play. So there's no rule book for these practices right now. There's a lot of texts out there that suggest things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I find super helpful is to train it on what you're seeking. So you upload an example of your current curriculum or your current learning standards, or your current module or something that
Yep.
you've got as a starting point. And then you say, please, explain to me what my core beliefs are about teaching and learning, or explain to me how I've approached this document because I want to create something similar, or create something that is like this using this constraint. And so in the workplace, we see a lot of folks uploading, for example, a cover letter and a resume or a CV and saying, please, I'll give you future job descriptions. I want you to write a personalized cover letter and resume that reflect it. Same thing goes for teachers. Take whatever you have that is fantastic.
Right.
But before you do that, I would recommend going into your tool and turning off something called train the model. That's within most tools, but especially ChatGPT. It's an easy thing to do under the settings, but that ensures that your user input is not being scraped by the model. Some companies like Claude never scrape user data. Most enterprise tools will not. But if you're just using a free version, which a lot of folks do, keep in mind that you want to turn off the model. You want to keep in mind that you can never change your email address. So if there's stuff you're doing for fun, like recipes or travel plans, things you want to keep after this, you'll lose that once you retire from your current position. So all the same, when you're diving in, I would start off with having a conversation that is framed around your fundamental beliefs about teaching and learning, because it will just generate generic stuff and do it really quickly.
Could even be something like the balance of, how much, more synchronous or types of instructor-led involvement you want your course or module to have versus online blended. Would that be a good question to ask it?
Absolutely. And you can begin with a role question, which says, hey, I want you to be an expert curriculum designer, an expert instructional designer, and I want you to ask me questions about what I believe about teaching and learning and the scope and the capacity of this course, and let it guide you in the discussion, where it's actually building upon your core values and the way you approach teaching and learning, the way you enjoy working with students. I would, again, let it play a role and ask it to be an expert, and try multiple tools. I wouldn't just limit yourself to ChatGPT, but try Gemini and the more advanced versions of Gemini. If you can access those, same thing with Claude, you'll see incredible parallels, but you'll also see some unique differences. And I would recommend using multiple tools and comparing to see what feels right for you, because a lot of folks have their favorite LLM right now.
how would if somebody was putting a question in under this idea of self-exploration to build their course or start to use AI to help build their course or augment their course, asking AI where AI could be assistance or helpful for the learner, where does that play into this kind of dialogue? If an educator wanted to say, okay, we've talked already a couple times today about having AI embedded or as part of learning management systems to be that scenario-based or that creative-based backstop or conversational for potentially the learner. Are we there yet where a professor or a teacher could put that in and ask AI where AI can best be used? What kind of answer are they going to get from that?
That's a great question. That's probably 5 questions at once.
It wasn't on your list, so it's like I always this is what it's like for us at Fusion, folks. If you're a Brightspace educator, administrator, if you have a chance to go to Fusion, you could be a fly on the wall and participate in this with us because we like having these discussions.
Or
so
or stop by in the evening after everything's done, and we will go deeper.
That's right.
So I'm trying to unpack the question for a moment, Rob, but I would say there's a distinction that I like to make between teacher side and student side AI.
Yep.
Even the teachers who are using it to build curricular pieces might begin with, hey, I really strongly believe in student-centered learning and andragogy. And I want to make sure that I'm creating a space for my students to be experts, even if I'm not an expert, because my expertise is in facilitation.
Right.
I want to create a safe space for them, for example, to become experts with using AI in this discipline. Even if I'm not an expert, how can I do that? What are ways that I can help sort of scaffold student inquiry, help them document their process? Again, for me, it's double downing on what we do best pedagogically, and then asking AI to build upon our specific teaching strategies and styles. Right. If that makes sense. So I believe in student-centered learning. I teach a class on student-centered learning as well. And how do we create, how do we create self-regulated learning experiences for students?
Right.
I would ask AI that question and see what you think, and then challenge it and say, well, actually, Malcolm Knowles said X, Y, and Z. What do you think about that? Or actually, Lev Vygotsky says this about social learning. Do we need this? What do you think about group work? Have a discussion with the tool and let it help you move to your own teaching philosophy statement. It can give you a bullet point list of what you believe, and then what you believe about student-centered learning, and then using that step towards the question of, okay, well, help me create some experiences for my students. Give me 5 things to choose from.
Right.
I will say that in the AI for Teaching and Learning class that I'm teaching, I just added my first bot into the course that is trained on the course materials.
Okay.
This is not a fancy one that has back panels so I can understand student use. There are products already like that. But this is just click on it. It opens up a ChatGPT that's trained on the experience, and it has 4 quick buttons. One of them is give me some research ideas for things that I might share with my peers, because each week they have to share innovative things in their discipline connected with AI. Another one is give me 5 teaching ideas in my discipline or connected with my teaching philosophy. When they click on those, it gives them a quick summary of 5 different ideas. Wow. You don't have to like any of them. But when you respond, then you just go back and say, well, hey, I'm looking more for X, Y, or Z. And then
it morphs and it shapes into the answers you want.
Because sometimes it's terrible with scope. Sometimes it really thinks, oh, this will only take an hour, and it will take 5 hours. So you have to really be they talk about human in the loop. You have to be the educator in the loop. You have to reshape what it's giving you, push it, tweak it, push it, tweak it. It might take an hour, but as I want to say, Casey Newton at the Hard Fork podcast was saying a couple weeks ago in their podcast that our work is now AI oversight. It's not, it's just shifting. We're going to use these tools to speed up our process, but we do need to be overseeing the process and making sure that it reflects our teaching vision and our students' needs. And if you have data that reflects, okay, in general, what do students value? You can summarize that, plug it into your tool, and build upon whatever sort of context you have
for your course.
Yeah.
There's so many more areas to explore with this. We've given some new educators a couple of pieces of a toolkit to start kind of thinking about this within their environments. We've talked about a couple different tools. You've mentioned Claude, ChatGPT. As we kind of start to cap things off, as AI is going to certainly influence and change many elements of education in everywhere. What do you see now as the two or three areas that, again, trying to give people listening a bit of a toolbox to leave here today and be safe to explore? Two or three tools and their direct benefit when we're talking about curriculum building, assessment building, finding better student outcomes, scenario-based learning. You've mentioned a couple. What are two or three of those, and what do you really look forward to talk about on the next podcast about where things have gone and what will be a very quick 6 or 8 months of AI technology?
This is it's difficult to summarize two or three things. The number one thing is not a tool; it's a practice. Go in and play.
There you go.
One of the first pieces I included in my blog was an acknowledgement of all the critiques of AI. There's a lot of important concerns that you should hold on to. That said, if you want your students to be able to influence the future of AI, this is the vehicle that's going around the corner. This is the automobile in that horse and buggy moment that is going to get into car crashes, or it's going to pollute. And unless we have somebody behind the driver's wheel who is responsible and ethical and transparent, then we're not going to be able to guide it forward. And it's moving quickly. And so for me, there's an imperative to play.
It's not going away. So get on board or let it go rogue. So we need to get on board and start understanding the parameters, really.
I think so. I have another piece that followed that acknowledgement of all the critiques of AI. I try to outline everything in my footnotes, which pivots towards the common use of AI. And there's a lot of statistics that have come out for K-12 and higher education that I walk through that just shows, okay, this is becoming the new norm. And our students are going to be expected for their college and career pathways to be using AI in their college and career path. And that, as we think about that, we have a window to help them move in that direction, knowing that AI is starting to move from bots to agents. This is a big point that Microsoft made last week at ASU GSV, that we need to expect a lot of rapid change. And it's dizzying. I get that. The best way to understand this is to be playing with these tools routinely, getting comfortable with, what the tools can do. Try to see what the tools cannot do. Try to get AI to fail, push the limits. One of the things I would start recommend as a practice, Rob, just to get to that practice point. Number one, build up a communication strategy for your students. What are you going to say to your students about AI during the first week, or during your syllabus, or during an activity that frames the work that you're doing? Second piece I would say is audit something in your class. Pretend you're a student and use that same tool to say, hey, could I hack this assignment using AI?
There you go.
And that's a great I don't really believe we can proof these things, but we can make them more resistant through text-dependent inquiry, through video-based presentations of knowledge, through other kinds of things that you're already doing, you're already able to do. But there's certain ways that we've written these assignments that
just a subtle adaptation, right? And most LMSs, and again, including Brightspace, have built-in video tools that people could be submitting video assignments or video assessment now, and there's no technological change or plugins needed to do that.
That's right.
Just a slight shift in thinking.
And I think even adding little addendums, if we have limited curricular control, which some adjuncts don't have the ability, for example, to change their curriculum, you can still add an addendum to something. Keep it the same, but add a slight addendum to create more accountability for process. When Wolfram Alpha came out, it disrupted math education. They had to shift towards process. In this moment, product can be hacked. Process is the thing that we need to double down on. We need to support the cognitive work. We need to
That's the safeguard. That's the safeguard, right?
It's the show me your work phenomenon. If our activities don't give students the opportunity to show that, then we should expect them at the last minute to submit work using AI where there is no visible process, or maybe it looks like they used AI, but they just went to the tutoring center, or they just used some tools to sharpen their language.
To sharpen it. Well, now Word has it. Again, they might think they're just using Word, not AI, because these tools are being embedded, and we don't even know where we're using it. That's, I think, a really interesting thing that's going to emerge in all these platforms.
It's the new norm with Grammarly. If you're part of the AI pilots at Google, you can basically say, you can click on the equivalent of ChatGPT right within the Google Docs window. And that will be the new norm. And it's going to be, I think, on us to create a space for our students to explore these tools, knowing that they're going to be changing faster than
then we can rewrite the assignment.
None of us can be experts because it's moving too quickly.
Yeah.
We have to create a space so students can become experts. And I think that's the important opportunity and the important window. And if we don't create that space for students, we start to become irrelevant.
Well, when they become the experts, we learn from them, and then we're full circle, aren't we?
That's the hope.
That's the hope. Reed, we could go on and on and on and on. I really like that we've found a few very distinct kind of tips and tools for some new folks in this who are trying to break into this conversation, to understand where to start and where to go. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate this.
Rob, it's always fun chatting. I look forward to our future conversations.
I feel half proud that I somewhat almost stumped you on a question. Like that's my gold moment today.
You always stump me on something.
For those of you listening, hope you enjoyed this really skim dive on AI in education and some of its implications and advantages and things to look for. We've got some tools and tips. If you have any questions for Reed or for us, drop us an email, allaboard@neontrain.com. Once again, Reed, thanks so much for joining. And for those of you listening, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Rob.